Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Upgrades. I'm Jeremy Knoll.
And I'm John Suarez.
And we are here today talking about the 2022 Starter Commander decks, which are 5 brand new decks that are entirely reprints, no new cards in them at all. It's a great way to pick up and start learning Commander, or to just have fun with some new decks that are a little bit more even with each other, and a nice little budget option there. So today we are going to be talking about the Grave Danger deck, and that is the blue-white zombies deck headed up by Gissa and Geralf. And that one is really good. I like this one a lot. It's 2 blue and black, 4/4 legendary creature, human wizard. It says when it enters the battlefield, mill 4 cards. So take 4 cards from the top of your library and put them in your graveyard. And then once during each of your turns, you may cast a zombie creature spell from your graveyard. So it works out really well.
Yeah. I think this deck is going to be pretty good right out of the box, like we were saying before we started. I think zombies, as they are normally pretty good. You don't normally have to upgrade a ton. So like we're going to cover right now, there's some notables just in the deck alone.
So starting off, we're going to be, if you're new to Commander, we want to let you know that we're going to be highlighting a few cards that are really, really good in the deck. They're really key players in the deck. And then a few suggestions that we might have for cards that you'd want to go out and add to the deck to power it up just a little bit. But those cards are generally going to try to be under the $5 limit. So first up.
So the first thing we're going to note is the 3 lords, as they're called. Lords in Magic have been historically a creature that gives other creatures of that type +1/+1. Mm-hmm. So we have Cemetery Reaper, Diagraph Captain, and Lord of the Accursed. These are all 3 mana zombie creatures that are 2/2s or 2/3, and they give other zombie creatures you control +1/+1. So Cemetery Reaper is just that, and then it has pay 3, tap it, exile a creature card, and create a 2/2 black zombie. Mm-hmm. Diagraph Ghoul gives other zombies the +1/+1. It has Death Touch, and then whenever a zombie you control dies, target opponent loses a life. And Lord of the Accursed has the same +1/+1. It's a 2/3, and then you can pay 2, tap it, and all zombies gain Menace.
Yeah, and Menace is that they can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures.
Yes, basically making them very difficult to block.
Yes. So this is a really great package right out the bat, and shows you a lot of what this deck is trying to do. It's trying to make some medium-sized, like 2/2 zombies, and then pump them up with these lords and really try and get through with some of this other evasion like Menace, or making sure that if they die, that somebody's going to lose a life anyway and stuff like that. So it kind of gives you an idea of what the deck is trying to do. So our next card is, this one is interesting because it's each of these decks, each 5 decks, has 1 Planeswalker in the deck, which doesn't normally happen in a lot of the Commander Precon decks. Some of them have 1, a lot of them have 0.
Yep.
Each one of these has 1. This one has Liliana Untouched by Death, which is a really good one. This is a 2 black, comes in with 4 loyalty counters. You can add a loyalty counter to put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. If at least one of them is a zombie, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Mm-hmm. So pretty good chance there. Yep. -2 is target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is in the number of zombies you control. And -3 is you may cast zombie cards from your graveyard this turn. So in case you don't have your commander, you can still utilize it. And this is interesting because it comes in with enough to actually get that last ability right off the bat.
It's a really good late game play where you can just, you got 8 or 9 mana lying around, you play this, and then you can play 5 mana worth of zombies out of your graveyard.
Exactly.
It's a very, very sweet card. The next card we have up, I love the zombie. Yeah. I loved the zombie bidding from this era, that deck. And Vengeful Death, 3 colors and a black, 3/2 zombie. Whenever it or another zombie is put into a graveyard for play, each opponent loses 1 life, which is important because this card is so old to say each opponent. It doesn't even make sense, really. Scourge was from 2000?
2003.
Yeah.
There was a lot of cards back then that still mentioned each opponent. Mm-hmm. And it might have been partly because, target opponent or your opponent or whatever was just not really worth it. And it might have been that there was just also a lot of, hey, let's get together and jam whatever cards we have together.
There were a lot of cards that actually gave you things like cards called Ivory Mask that let you have Shroud, or you can't be targeted spells or abilities. So having effects that let each opponent lose life made sure that you could get around those effects back then.
Instead of target opponents, things like that. So it's really good to go through some of the older cards that are out, and see if there's ones that have the each opponent clause on them, for sure. The next one we've got is quite a bit newer, and that is Loyal Subordinate. This is a 3/1 zombie with Menace, and it's cost 2 and a black. And it says, Lieutenant, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, each opponent loses 3 life. So these cards came out in a Commander Precon previously, and the ones with Lieutenant, and they all do something really awesome when you have your commander. Yep. So it's a good one to have for sure in this deck.
Next card in here was Havengul Lich, 3 colors, blue, black, 4/4 zombie wizard. You may pay it's 1, and then you can cast target creature in a graveyard this turn. A graveyard. And when you cast this card this turn, Havengul Lich gains all activated abilities of that card until end of turn.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this card?
I like this card a lot. I liked it when it was in standard. I think in the pre-constructed decks as it stands, and I haven't looked through all of them in depth, but I'm going to imagine you're probably not going to get that activated ability too often.
Yeah.
But you never know. And at the very least, just raising dead creatures seems great.
You might be able to get something in like the tokens deck or something like that. But yeah, for the most part,
I just want to take the creature and play.
I want to put a creature in play, and I want to put one of their best creatures that's in their graveyard in play. You're going to be like,
that other part.
Get rid of all their creatures and put them in the graveyard, and then going and getting whichever one you want. So our next one is Crippling Fear.
That's sweet.
This one's really sweet. So it's a sorcery for 2 black. It says choose a creature type. Creatures that aren't of the chosen type get -3/-3 until end of turn. So very easy.
I wonder what you're going to choose, Jeremy.
Very easy. You're just going to choose zombie. And it's really great because you're going to be able to either get rid of a lot of those tokens that the token deck is going to make, or a lot of the smaller creatures from the blue-white deck. But you're also going to be able to really shrink the dragons from the dragon deck in the set, and then be able to get through with the added benefits of hopefully your lords and stuff like that to get through. So.
The next 2 cards we have are 2 of the ways to draw cards in this deck. One, not very on brand for the zombie deck, and that's Vampiric Rites. Vampiric Rites in the zombie deck, somebody needs to yell at them. That doesn't make any sense, but the card is good in the deck. Yeah, I will admit that.
I think the reason why it's in there, and this is something we'll go over a little bit more when we get into our cards that we're going to add, is that it's one of the couple of ways that you can actually sacrifice creatures.
Yeah, no, the card is very good for the deck.
Yes.
Very good. 1 mana enchantment, colorless and a black, sack a creature, you gain a life and you draw a card. The card is going to be excellent in the deck.
Exactly. Yep.
But there's no vampires. The other card for drawing cards that we have here noted is Distant Melody. And that is where you will choose a creature type. Again, it'll obviously be zombie, and then you draw a card for each permanent you control of that type.
Yep. And it's really interesting because speaking of Distant Melody, and then our next one, which is Lazotep Plating. It's an instant for 1 and a blue, amass 1. So you make a zombie army token and you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then you and permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. I really feel like someone at WotC went through, watched our upgrades from previous decks, and was just like, we're going to put that in there.
Yeah.
We're going to put that in there.
No more getting.
There's a lot of overlap from the cards that we have suggested in the past and cards that we're seeing in these decks. Yeah. Lazotep Plating is definitely one that we suggest to put in quite a few blue decks.
Yes. So you gaining hexproof is something that people just forget about that card. All right. So I think that's all of the notable cards that we have listed. So we can move on to the cards we're going to upgrade. So the first card we have is one of the best zombies of all time.
Yes.
From Carrion Feeder. Yes. 1 black. It is a 1/1 zombie, and it cannot block. So not planning to do that, but you can sacrifice a creature to put a +1/+1 counter on it. We were just talking about sacrificing.
Yes.
Having ways to sacrifice creatures is going to be very good for this deck, as you'll see some other cards that we're going to mention in the upgrade section. Obviously, will want you to sacrifice creatures. So.
Yeah, they're either going to want to sacrifice creatures, or they're going to gain some sort of benefit when they go to the graveyard or something like that. So being able to sacrifice creatures at a moment's notice is really good, especially in a deck like this. And then you can also, as we've talked before, reanimate, bringing things back from the graveyard to the battlefield is a huge part of zombie decks. The next card is a newer card, and it's seen a lot of play, and it can also end up as your commander for the deck if you really want to. That's Wilhelt the Rot Cleaver. It's 2 blue-black, legendary creature zombie warrior, 3/3. Whenever another zombie you control dies, if it didn't have Decayed, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. And at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice a zombie if you do draw a card.
Yes.
So it gives you that benefit of whenever you're going to attack and they have to think of, do I want to block that and kill it because he's they're just going to get another, zombie creature token. And there, you can also just sacrifice the creature at your end step to gain advantage, draw cards.
Yep.
Really great.
Next card we have is one of the bigger zombies you're going to see, and that's Diagraph Colossus. This is 2 colors and a black 2/2 zombie giant. Now, 2/2 zombie giant doesn't make much sense, but when it enters the battlefield, it gets a +1/+1 card for every zombie card in your graveyard.
Yep.
And then whenever you cast a zombie spell, you create a tapped 2/2 black zombie token. So it gets very, very large, and then it just starts spitting them out.
Yeah, it can get out of hand very quickly, and it's also really great late game. If you have a bunch of zombies already in your graveyard and a bunch of them have died, then it comes in and it's one really big creature. So
that card has a Pro Tour trophy attached to it.
It does.
Very good card.
Our next one is one that our friend and former colleague Justin Parnell used to love playing in a lot of his decks that are black, and even if they weren't zombie themed, and that is Newsgraph Mob. This is a zombie for 4 black. It comes in, it's a 0/0, but when it enters the battlefield, it comes in with 5 +1/+1 counters on it. So it comes in as a 5/5. Whenever a player casts a spell, remove a +1/+1 counter from it. If you do, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token.
Yeah, that card's really good. It creates so much power.
It really does.
It just floods the board, and then you probably sacrifice it later, or you put a +1/+1 counter on it another way, or something like that.
Yeah, you can lots of tap plating this. You can do lots of stuff, and then if it dies and you can get it back with one of your reanimate things,
let's not even go there.
Yeah, it comes even worse.
Yeah.
So,
probably the best zombie card in the deck, and not even a zombie card. It is an enchantment. Endless Ranks of the Dead. This is the staple that is going to be in basically every zombie deck that you would want to play. 2 colors, black. At the beginning of your upkeep, create X 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, where X is half of the number of zombies you control rounded down.
Yeah.
This card just, if the game goes on, good luck.
Yeah.
Gets out of hand.
It gets out of hand really quick.
It's on theme.
If they don't destroy all creatures, if they don't destroy this enchantment, you're going to be building an army that gets bigger and bigger.
You'll be building Endless Ranks of the Dead.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Our next one is one that can help you, again, get a little bit more evasion, be able to take care of some people who might not have the ability to block your creatures when they have flying, and that's Horde Wings Scab. It's a zombie horror for 4 and a blue. It has flying, and it says other zombies you control have flying. And it says whenever one or more zombies you control deal combat damage to one or more of your opponents, you may draw cards equal to the number of opponents dealt damage this way. If you just do discard that many cards. So hit one person, you draw a card, discard a card, and 2 people to draw 2. So it kind of scales up depending on how many people are still left in the game, how many people can actually block your creatures, your zombies, when they're getting through, and then lets you fill your graveyard with even more zombies that you can then reanimate a little bit later.
Speaking of filling your graveyard, next card we have is Forbidden Alchemy.
I like this card.
2 colors and a blue instant. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, put one of them to your hand and the rest into your graveyard, and you can flash it back for 6 and a black. Yeah, this card was very good when it came out. I think it's still very good, probably underplayed. The ability to do it at instant speed is nice. Draw a card, and you get to put some stuff in your graveyard.
Yeah, as
you're going to use later.
As we've said before, don't be afraid of putting stuff in your graveyard, especially in this deck.
Especially in this deck.
Our next one is Wand of Orcas. This is another one that John and I have suggested many, many times, basically since it's come out. It doesn't necessarily always have to be in a zombie deck.
To be clear, basically since the first time we cut it.
Yeah, that is true. We undervalued it.
We undervalued this the first time we saw this card.
By a lot. And then every other time we're just like,
put it in
your deck. It's real good. It's real good. Wand of Orcas is a 2 and a black legendary artifact equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks or blocks, it and zombies you control gain death touch until end of turn. Great when you're playing the zombie deck. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens.
Yeah.
If you're going to be able to put this on your Diagraph Colossus with a couple of lords out, it's going to get out of hand fast.
Real fast. The fact that you actually get that first ability with this deck, which gives your creatures death touch, pretty obnoxious. So.
Yeah. The next 2 cards are cards that I would like to talk about.
Go for it.
Like we can definitely talk. You can definitely talk about this, but together these 2 cards could be seen as being pretty mean. If you're playing new players, if you're a new player and you're playing against your friends for the first time, this is your first commander decks and stuff, just be aware that these cards especially can be considered a little bit salty. But we want to make sure to add them in because they are cheap and they are really, really good in this deck.
How big is the salt scale on something like Living Death? It's so fun.
If you're playing as a new
You're
player,
a zombie deck.
Yes.
Living Death is on brand.
It is
It's everything you're
super-
trying to do.
super great. But if your other opponents are just
Look at the art. The zombies are
Yeah.
burying the living. It's perfect.
It's
it's
great.
literally what you want in this deck. This is the perfect card for it. And then Living Death, 3 colors, black, sorcery. Each player exiles all creatures from their graveyard and then sacrifices all creatures they control. And then you put all the cards that were exiled into play. Very
basically switching all the creatures from in play and in your graveyard.
raised the living. Poor living, all dead.
And the last one
Bury 'em.
is definitely one that can get out of hand if in a zombie deck, and that is Rooftop Storm. It is 5 and a blue enchantment. That seems expensive, but what it does is you can pay 0 rather than the mana cost of zombie creature spells you cast.
That card can be salty. That's just omniscience for
Yeah.
a zombie deck. That's not fair.
It can get out of hand really fast.
Yeah.
You can, if you're drawing cards with all of your, your distant melodies and stuff like that, your
Yeah.
card drawing abilities, you just fill your hand up, play Rooftop Storm, and then just all of your cards are in play.
You have to work for Living Death to do something good. This card, you just play it, and now you can cast your cards for free.
It's true. It's just as a warning, if you are a newer player, definitely make sure you're aware that these can cause some grumbles within the play groups, but they're also fantastic cards.
Yes, they're great.
So those are all the suggestions that we have for the upgrades for the Grave Danger deck. So make sure to let us know in the comments both what cards you would add into the deck if you were going to be upgrading this deck, and which deck that you like the most out of all of the 5 decks that are coming out for this starter commander deck. And make sure to also like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that bell to get notified of all new episodes. For Jonathan Suarez, I'm Jeremy Knoll. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time.